It seems like we know who's going to start at corner for Syracuse football this season. And guess what, folks? It's definitely really talented, but it's also really young. Let's break it all down.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day, and of course, we are always free and available wherever you get your podcasts, whether you're watching Locked On Syracuse right now on YouTube or you're listening on your favorite audio platform. On today's show, we are going to discuss the offensive line and also update you on a couple of injuries on the Syracuse football team. We're also going to talk about SU's kicker competition, and I actually have an idea of how they can solve the competition. So you're going to want to stick around later on in the show. But first, Syracuse's cornerback room is taking shape. It seems like we know who is going to start for Syracuse in that position group for this upcoming season. All that and more here on today's edition of Locked On Syracuse. Now, before we get to everything, this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. The cornerback starters for Syracuse at this moment appear to be set in stone. Seems like we know who the top three are going to be. And it's led by the second youngest player, not on Syracuse football. Oh no, not in the ACC either. The second youngest player in all of college football appears to have earned himself a starting job at corner for Syracuse football this season. Of course, I am talking about 2025 four-star consensus recruit, Demetres Samuel. Fran Brown confirmed it. He said that Samuel is going to start at corner for Syracuse this season, and he's also going to play some wide receiver. Next Travis Hunter, anyone? I mean, hey, I wouldn't mind if he becomes the next Travis Hunter, right? Of course, he's the guy, the poster child of someone who can play both wide receiver and corner, play both ways. I wouldn't be mad at it. Now, I wouldn't sit here and say that he's going to be the next Travis Hunter, but you know what? Pretty nice that he is a two-way player. In fact, he's already received multiple preseason accolades. Now, to be clear, these are just preseason accolades. At the end of the day, they don't really mean too much. But there are a lot of high expectations on Demetres Samuel, and it's not just coming from myself as a Syracuse fan and as a Syracuse alum, and it's not just coming from you as a Syracuse fan and perhaps a Syracuse alum. No, it's coming nationally. On three, recently named Demetres Samuel as a freshman All-American for this upcoming season. They believe that he's going to be one of the top freshmen in the country in 2025. And ESPN also backed that up. They believe that he is a top 10 freshman for this upcoming season. And it's kind of funny because ESPN, I'm not going to sit here and say they disrespected him in their rankings because they had him rated pretty high out of high school, but he was 223 in the class of 2025. And here we are now, we're talking about Demetres Samuel as a top 10 player in the country, or at least a top 10 freshman in the country for this upcoming season. Again, two-way player. And I also want to make this a point of emphasis here from Fran Brown. He did make sure to say that he's a cornerback first. He is going to start at corner for Syracuse football, and he will play some wide receiver, but according to Fran Brown, it's mostly going to be based on his body and how it holds up throughout the season, right? He's in shape, obviously. He's in football shape. He's definitely going to have a set number of plays at some point in time for every single game. But at the end of the day, we have to track how his body is going to hold up over the course of the season because he's going to be playing both corner and wide receiver, and he's a cornerback first. So that's number one. And number two, what does the team need? if the team doesn't really need him to play wide receiver, because Syracuse does have a number of really strong wide receivers on the team, at least we hope that they have a number of strong wide receivers on the team, perhaps they don't use him as much on offense for this upcoming season. But for the second straight year, Syracuse football has a true freshman corner starting in week 1. Of course, last year it was Marcellus Barnes, who in the offseason transferred to SMU. But still, 2 straight years having a true freshman corner start for Syracuse football and already receiving a ton of preseason accolades, feeding into my point that this cornerback room is definitely very talented. It's just very, very young. So we have to see it on the field before we can truly, truly believe in the group. But I love the talent that they have. Chris Peel is the other one that appears to be starting alongside of Demetres Samuel, or I should say on the opposite side of the field. Tomato. He is the Georgia transfer from this offseason. He's not a two-way player, by the way. Should make sure to mention that. Peel has only appeared in 5 games at Georgia over the past 2 seasons, but Fran Brown knows him well. And also, Chris Peel has a pretty nice high school track record. He was a 2023 4-star recruit. Obviously, you got to be pretty damn good to be recruited to go to Georgia. Fran Brown was actually his primary recruiter out of high school. And just because Chris Peel was, I guess, could not get on the field as much over at Georgia, he could not get significant playing time over at Georgia, does not mean that he can't play or that he can't start for Syracuse football and still be really good. I mean, we're learning that right now with Jackson Meeks in the preseason for the Detroit Lions. It seems like he might make their 53-man roster. He really couldn't get on the field that much at Georgia, and he wasn't even a starting wide receiver to begin last season at Syracuse. But he got his opportunity, became the wide receiver 1, and he ran with it. That's for sure. Now he's kicking butt in the preseason for the Lions. Might actually make that 53. I can't believe it. So yeah, with Chris Peel, I'm not sitting here saying that he is going to be the next Jackson Meeks, but it's definitely possible when you have a guy who's talented coming over from a school that just has so many talented players, and he's just someone that needs a shot. And so Chris Peel, Demetres Samuel, I like that 1-2 punch. It's talented, but it's young and it's inexperienced. And then you got Davian Kerr, a returning sophomore for this season. He played in 8 games for Syracuse last year as a true freshman, and he started the final 4 games for Syracuse football. If you recall, his first start came against Cal, and that's because of a couple of disciplinary actions by Fran Brown, which led to Davian Kerr starting, and lo and behold, he had his Wally Pipp moment, and he started the rest of the season for Syracuse as an outside corner. But this season, at least for week 1, he projects to be the starting nickelback for Syracuse football. I'm a little bit surprised by that. Don't take it as that I'm disappointed by it, but I am a little bit surprised. I thought if Davian Kerr didn't get an outside corner position, or at least a starting position, he would be a backup. Maybe they would slide Barry Buxton to be the nickel. Maybe Devin Grant would be the nickel for Syracuse, but I guess they're going to go with Davian Kerr, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I know more than Fran Brown and his coaching staff. So Davian Kerr appears like he's going to be the starting nickelback for Syracuse football this season. So the starting 3 corners for Syracuse, you got Demetres Samuel, on 3 true freshman, All-American, ESPN top 10 freshman in the country for this season. Chris Peel, a transfer from Georgia, who in 2023 was a 4-star recruit recruited by Fran Brown. And Davian Kerr, who's a returning sophomore who, as a true freshman, started 4 games for Syracuse last season. So this cornerback room in general, it gives me a lot of excitement. It gives me a lot of hope, not just for 2025, but beyond that, because if it does well this season, well, they can all come back for next year and the year after that as well before any of them lose college eligibility. That's the upside here. But of course, they do lack that experience, and they're getting thrown in the fire in week 1. Their week 1 opponent, obviously, in the Tennessee Volunteers. I already have seen some Tennessee fans find Locked On Syracuse. I say, welcome. We're going to have plenty more content discussing Syracuse and Tennessee, mostly from the Syracuse perspective, though. Hope that you find it informative. But the point being with this young cornerback room is look, it's talented, but week one, they're getting thrown right into the fire against Tennessee. They don't get that training wheels matchup in week one. You're going up against a top 25 opponent who was in the college football playoff last season, who's got one of the best head coaches in the country. Let's see what happens. And as a sneak peek to a podcast that I'm probably going to do next week when we do some matchup analysis, that's one of the things I'm going to look at. Tennessee's wide receivers versus Syracuse's corners. What do you think of Syracuse's projected starting cornerback room? Comment your thoughts in the comment section below how you think it'll hold up this season. Now, coming up, Syracuse still has a battle at the kicker position. We'll go over that next here on Locked On Syracuse. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. And that's where Monarch Money comes in. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. I canceled those, and it saved me money every single month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. If you're running a business, every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you needed a service. If the first person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not. You most likely moved on. That's why you need Open Phone, so you never miss an opportunity to connect with your customers. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system designed to streamline and scale your customer communications. Your whole team can share one number and respond to customers like a shared inbox. No more, who's handling this? See why over 60,000 businesses trust Open Phone. They're offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedoncollege. That's openphone.com/lockedoncollege. They'll even port over your existing numbers for free. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. We still don't know who Syracuse's starting kicker will be in week one against Tennessee. Let's dive right into it. For those that don't know, over the course of fall camp, Syracuse has had a kicker battle. It is between returning player Jadyn, who is a redshirt sophomore, and Iowa transfer Tripp Woody. This is obviously very important. I know we're sitting here, we're talking about the kicker. Why are you talking about the kicker, Jackson? I mean, it's the kicker. You don't realize how important a kicker is until you have a bad kicker. Then you realize how many points a team is really leaving on the table. Kickers are very, very important. They store a lot of points, whether you like it or not. So the fact that Syracuse has a kicker battle, whether it's a good thing or whether it's a bad thing, it's definitely an important thing. And last year, as good as Syracuse was on offense and as many points as they scored and as many yards as they accumulated, they still left points on the table, in part because they were not good at kicker last year. Syracuse had the worst kicking percentage in the ACC last season at less than 60%. The exact percentage, for those that are very curious, 59.1%. Simply not acceptable. And the year before, they weren't exactly good either, but were better than 59.1%. Now, based on what Fran Brown has been saying to the media, Jadyn is going to be the guy that handles the kickoffs for the team this upcoming season. And the reason is because he's got a bigger leg. And so as a result, you can kick it farther, more touchbacks, great. So Jadyn, he'll handle the kickoffs for Syracuse football this upcoming season. Fine. But as far as the competition itself, here's what Fran Brown had to say. I'll read you the quote to you all right now. Tripp Woody did a lot better this weekend. Of course, Syracuse had their second scrimmage. Just wanted to interject that. But anyways, Tripp Woody did a lot better this weekend. Jadyn was winning for a while, but Tripp has lately been more on point and doing the right thing. Tripp has been a little more solid when it comes to kicking, but Jadyn has been really doing a great job on kickoffs. So what's there to interpret with this kicker battle based on what Fran Brown said? Honestly, my thought is that it seems like Tripp Woody might have the upper hand with this. But does it really matter if he has the upper hand? In other words, I'm not looking at this kicker competition, whoever wins it, like the quarterback competition. I think barring a Nathan Peterman first half performance in his first career NFL start with the Buffalo Bills a while back, where he threw 6 interceptions, Steve Angeli is going to get at least multiple games to start before Fran Brown really considers pulling the plug and perhaps going to Ricky Collins or someone else as the quarterback. With the kicker battle, they might name someone the kicker for week 1 against Tennessee. That's great. But how many kicks does the guy have to miss before we sit here and say, well, do you just go to the other kicker now? Like if they name Tripp Woody the starting kicker and he misses his first 2 attempts, do you just move on and go to Jadyn? Maybe. I'm certainly not treating this like the quarterback battle. Here is my thought, though. This is the idea that I teased at the very top of the show. I think Syracuse, based on what Fran Brown is saying, should perhaps consider going to a 2-kicker system. Of course, I'm not sitting here saying they should put 2 kickers on the field. No. Don't come at me like that. But if Jadyn has the bigger leg, if he can kick it farther, but maybe Tripp Woody is more accurate, he's just missing that kick power, well, maybe you can get the best of both worlds here. Nobody's going to sit here and tell you have to use 1 kicker per game. You can use multiple kickers. You're already going to dress multiple kickers anyway. So perhaps on longer field goals, you go with Jadyn because you know he has the leg to get it there. But on shorter attempts, when Syracuse needs their kicker to hit a high pop-up straight through the uprights, you go with the guy who's more accurate in Tripp Woody. Now, as far as what the distance should be, I don't know. I guess that's up for the coaches to determine what they're comfortable with each kicker attempting. But for me, at least, I think if it's 45 yards or more, perhaps you go with Jadyn. And if it's 45 yards or less, or maybe less than 45 yards, I should say, you go with Tripp Woody. You know that as a Division I kicker, they should all be able to kick at least 45 yards. So Tripp Woody, he's more accurate. Go with him on shorter attempts. Longer attempts, you go with Jadyn. And you can also operate like last year. If you're not comfortable really with either kicker, just go for it more often. There's no shame in going for it if you're really not confident in your kicker to make kicks. So overall, we're going to continue to monitor this kicking situation with Syracuse. Again, it's very important because last year, they were not very good at kicking, and this year you have to figure they have to be a lot better because they're going up against better competition, and they're probably going to need to outscore a lot of their opponents. Who do you think is going to prevail in this competition? Comment your thoughts in the comment section below. Hopefully, we get our answer very, very soon. Now, coming up, updates on the offensive line for Syracuse, as well as updates on the injury front. So stick with me here on Locked On Syracuse. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards. Preseason is already heating up and college football isn't far behind. It's actually starting this week. Whether you've got your eye on big-name quarterbacks or breakout running backs, PrizePicks makes it easy to get in the game. PrizePicks is simple to play. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. And if you get your picks right, you could cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5. PrizePicks, run your game. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champion before week one even kicks off, this is your moment. And one race that I'm looking at is who's going to be Offensive Rookie of the Year in the NFL this season. My pick is going to be Ashton Jeanty of the Las Vegas Raiders. Spoiler alert, I may take him in a couple of my fantasy football drafts coming up. I really like him this season. Obviously, very high draft pick. He plays a position where he's going to get a ton of volume this season. And also, think about the head coach with the Raiders. It's Pete Carroll. Think about how Pete Carroll used Marshawn Lynch while he was there. I kind of expect that Ashton Jeanty could have that type of career with the Raiders as long as Pete Carroll is their head coach. You agree with me? You disagree with me? Well, you can head to FanDuel right now today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. This is Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and folks, thank you for making it to this point in the podcast. I hope that means you enjoy Locked On Syracuse, and if so, if you can just do me a favor, hit that like button, and if you really enjoy the podcast, hit that subscribe button, and you're going to want to turn on those notifications because we got plenty of more content coming your way here on Locked On Syracuse as we get you ready for the start of week one between Syracuse and Tennessee. Let's go over the offensive line for Syracuse football, because offensive line coach Dale Williams, he met with the media yesterday and provided us a few informative updates, which is nice. Now, unfortunately, because I kind of wish we got some answers by now, but we don't just yet. We will get them soon. There's going to be a depth chart that's released. I don't know when, but it'll happen soon, probably early next week, Monday or Tuesday, I expect. He did not name the 5 starters. Dun, dun, dun. But he did name the 10 guys that are sticking out. And so you can interpret that as these 10 players who we're about to mention in just a moment are going to make up the first and second team offensive line for Syracuse. We just don't know necessarily what position they will be and whether or not they will be first team or second team. We'll get to one player in just a moment who's also dealing with an injury. We got a positive update on this player who projects to start for Syracuse along the offensive line. Really the only guy who seems like has a firm grasp on this position on the line. So who are the 10 guys? Well, I'm going to give it to you in just a second here, but I also want to reiterate that we do have a full offensive line preview podcast here on this channel. If you just go to the playlist section of Locked On Syracuse on YouTube, you can go find the position preview podcast, and you will see where we have the offensive line preview podcast, where we go more in depth on each of these offensive linemen. So in no particular order, the 10 players that Dale Williams mentioned, the returners, Demetres Weatherspoon, Trevion Mack, Joe Cruz, and Josh Miller. The newbies being Austin Collins, TJ Ferguson, Cam Pringle, Byron Washington, a true freshman, Zach Rice, and Naquil Betrand. So those are the 10 offensive linemen that are still fighting for 5 spots to start in week one against Tennessee. Let's talk about injuries now. Austin Collins is the player that I was referring to when discussing the offensive line. He's projected to start for Syracuse at center. Of course, he is the Louisville transfer from this offseason. He played guard over at Louisville mostly, but had a few reps over at center. And Austin Collins, in my opinion, is really the one player that seems to be a lock to start along the offensive line. We could sit here and try to project, I think this player will start. I think that player may start. Maybe that's like 60-40, 70-30, maybe even 80-20. The only one where it seems like it's 99-1, because I'm not going to sit here and say it's 100-0, is Austin Collins. Because if he's not starting at center, I don't know who the backup center is and who is going to take his spot. So it looks like it's going to be Austin Collins. It's something that I'm actually looking at as we get a depth chart soon, is who is going to be the backup center for Syracuse football. Now, as far as the injury, he was a little bit banged up. I'm not exactly sure what it was, but the good news is that I was saying was, which is past tense, meaning now he's a full participant in practice. He should be good to go for week one against Tennessee. So Syracuse, they're going to have their starting center for week 1 against Tennessee. Thank goodness, because we're going to need all hands on deck to try to pull off an upset against the Tennessee Volunteers and really deal with their front seven that they got over there. Moving on from Austin Collins, you got Darian Williams, a true freshman wide receiver. He is dealing with an undisclosed injury. He is practicing, but it is a non-contact participant. With Darian Williams, I don't think he's expected to play too much for Syracuse this season. We might see him on the field at times, especially in week 3 against Colgate. Colgate is the perfect time to see a lot of true freshmen and backups on the roster because you're playing Colgate. You should be able to blow that team out by halftime. Keyword is hopefully you can blow them out by halftime. Even though Darian Williams isn't expected to play all that much this upcoming season, we hope that he gets healthy, he gets back into contact drills, and of course, he can continue his development, not just for this season, but for seasons beyond with Syracuse football. You got Jamie Tremble, 2024 4-star tight end. We're all hoping that Jamie Tremble takes a big step forward in development this upcoming season. Of course, at tight end, Syracuse does not have Oronde Gadsden this season. He's in the NFL with the Chargers. Jamie Tremble is dealing with muscle spasms in his leg. He's being held out of practice, but coaches are saying it's just precautionary. He should be go to for week 1 against Tennessee. And finally, you got Jaleel Martin, a redshirt junior defensive back, dealing with an undisclosed injury and could not find a timetable for his return. He is expected to be a reserve defensive back for Syracuse football. And when I say reserve, I don't mean that he's not going to play. If Jaleel Martin is healthy, he's going to see the field for Syracuse football on defense this season. He appeared in 5 games last year, and he did have an interception in the Holiday Bowl win over Washington State. So that's an update on Syracuse's offensive line, as well as some of the injuries that they are currently dealing with. As far as what's coming up on Locked On Syracuse here in the near future, tomorrow, we got another full podcast for you talking about Syracuse's true freshmen that could see the field in week 1, perhaps over the course of the season. We'll discuss that tomorrow on the podcast. On Friday, we got Poll Friday, which is the final regular season win prediction for Syracuse football. And no, I will not be giving my prediction for what I think is going to be happening against Tennessee. I'm going to save that basically for the end of next week as we get you ready for the start of Syracuse and Tennessee on Saturday at noon down in Atlanta, Georgia. But anyways, that's what's coming up on Locked On Syracuse in the near future. Now, thank you for making us your first listen today. For your second listen, you have a few options. You can check out the Locked On Portal Show with football recruiting expert Brian Smith. He's got the latest rumors and signings each and every day. You can check out Locked On ACC with hosts Alex Dano and Kenton Gibbs, giving you all things ACC football. And when basketball season starts, ACC basketball. And if you want more broad analysis of what's going on in college football in general, well, you're in luck. You can check out Locked On College Football with host Spencer McLaughlin. You can find all those podcasts I just mentioned, Locked On Portal, Locked On ACC, Locked On College Football on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Folks, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this podcast, be sure to hit that like button. If you really enjoy the podcast, be sure to hit subscribe. Tell all your friends about Locked On Syracuse, and I will see you all again soon.